After the crashes we saw during the opening weekend of the Spring Classics, there's a fresh debate about safety in cycling. Great. And we kick off these 10 minutes, a 1 minute individual time trial with a roundup of the biggest stories in the world of cycling today, March 2nd. And we do it with today's results. The only UCI category race held today, the women's Les Samyn. And also with that debate that's opened up around safety, which needs to be explored further by race organizers and the entire cycling community, after the extremely serious incidents we witnessed throughout this weekend. Incidents that have sidelined riders as important as Tim Wellens and Stefan Kung himself, just to name two among the many cyclists affected across races and competitions. Let's start with the results from today. Les Samyn raced in Belgium today in the women's category, featured two Latin American riders, Colombia's Juliana Londoño from Team Picnic Post-NL and Mexico's Hinojosa riding for Lotto. These were the results from today's race. A high-quality breakaway allowed Irish rider Lara Gillespie to claim this year's edition of Les Samyn. Two riders from UAE went up against two Australians, and then Goossens, who finished second overall, faced the Polish rider from Human Powered Health. All of it in a very entertaining race held today in southern Belgium near the border. Tomorrow we'll have the men's race over 203 kilometers. With a fairly demanding route like what we've seen at Omloop and Courne, this event has a few special characteristics around Brussels, and tomorrow we'll see how it plays out. And we'll see whether the pre-race favorites really get the chance to show what they're worth. Among them, we should mention the return of Bud van Aert, who's already entered for Bismarck Lisa Bike as one of the riders who will wear a bib number ending in 1 for his team, meaning he'll be one of the favorites in the race. We'll see how he comes in after surgery following that crash, as you know, on January 2nd while racing cyclocross. So tomorrow we'll have that classic with Wout van Aert on the start line. On the other hand, the Trofeo La Igeglia is also coming up, where Ecuadorian rider Richard Carapaz will make his season debut with a campaign based largely in Italy, with Strade Bianche, then Tirreno Adriatico before moving on to Catalonia. So there'll be plenty of interest this week around the Ecuadorians' return to racing. And of course, we'll have the build-up and all the details of what Saturday's Strade Bianche will bring, both men's and women's. But the issue drawing the most attention today is crashes and accidents, which are happening more and more often in cycling, with increasingly serious consequences. Although the latest one we reported yesterday was Tim Wellens, it's been confirmed he has a broken collarbone, he's had surgery, and he'll recover closer to home. Not surprisingly, the race was held near where he lives. Well, this is the latest incident after we've seen a whole bunch of crashes and mishaps throughout the opening weekend. It started with an Omloop newsblad packed with critical situations, often hard for riders to avoid. We saw how at one point Mathieu van der Poel had to dodge a crash that could have been extremely complicated for him. He managed to get through it, and from there he launched his breakaway, but several riders broke teeth, others suffered fractures, and tensions ran high. There were fractures to elbows, even to the pelvis, and some of them will be out for a long time. Stefan Kung was one of those involved in one of the most spectacular crashes, Ben Swift as well. A long list of riders adding to those who were already injured before. Also from crashes that had already happened both in the Valencian community and in Oman, And let's remember the case of Damien Touze, this Cofidis rider who will be out for almost 8 months, unable to get on a bike because of the severity of his injuries and unsure whether he'll be able to continue his professional career. Add to that the cases of Keanu Dubruce at Movistar and what Jonathan Narvaez has been through. Not to mention his crash in one of the earliest races of the season like the Tour Down Under. And to all of this, of course, we have to keep adding riders with long-term injuries affected by previous crashes or recurring problems. Injuries that don't allow them to practice the sport with the normal continuity they need. We're talking about Tim Merlier, Tobias Foss, and other riders who have also, of course, been affected by this situation. So the debate opens up. What can we do? Over these weeks, whenever we've had the chance to speak with riders, we've asked them about these risks, this increase in risk and what's happening inside the sport. And they all agree that crashes and knocks are inherent to this sport and that you have to learn to live with it. But what's happening is becoming truly striking. These crashes, these accidents are causing long layoffs, because the injuries are becoming more serious and more complex. People have talked about it, but there's still no proof that the much discussed airbag vest being tested by Team Picnic PostNL is really working, and it hasn't quite caught on. We saw crashes, for example, involving riders from this team like Fabio Jakobsen in some of the races where he was going to contest the sprint. And in the end, the information that came out wasn't really solid enough to know whether those airbag vests could actually help make the riders' injuries less severe. It has also been noted that at times this equipment is actually making the situations riders are involved in worse. And instead of helping, it becomes something that increases the difficulty or the risk these professionals have to take on. There won't be a reduction in speed, that's obvious. We saw that during these classics. Everyone wants to be exactly where their directors tell them to be so they don't lose time to their rivals. And they all try to be in a very specific spot at a very high speed where the risk of an accident is huge. And that's what ends up happening when too many riders converge at the same point in a race: accidents and dangerous situations. Like the one we saw involving Mathieu van der Poel. He handled it well, but it could have derailed his entire season. We've also seen collisions during training. In fact, Jonas Vingegaard hasn't started his season because of a crash, an incident he had while training. And many other riders have suffered this kind of incident in races while preparing for a competition. So it's a topic we'll have to keep paying very close attention to, because this increase isn't just in the type of injuries, but also in the time riders are out, and that's starting to worry some organizations too. Riders with stories like these, we'll leave you there and invite you to keep joining us on the bike. I'm Iñaki Berueta.